Lady gets her iPad stolen, and besides, it should be everyone's problem. I work as an administrator in an elementary school. Last Monday morning, a very agitated coworker came asking for help. Apparently someone broke into a mother's car and stole her iPad while she was dropping her kid off. That's really bad. Only I have access to the surveillance footage. So of course I agreed to help. I only need to know which car it was and where it was parked. We both went out to look for the mom so I can ask her this. She was yelling at a group of teachers, demanding the camera footage and saying she knew this school was horrible and full of thieves. She was so upset she didn't want to talk to me and just left in a rage. I thought that was very understandable. TDH, I went over to her kid's teacher to ask exactly how it happened. And then everything turned real awkward. The mom's car wasn't in our parking lot when it happened. She decided to leave it out on the street so she could save time. She left her car unlocked. The iPad, in a bright pink case, was on the passenger seat. She never activated the Find My feature. Because this wasn't in school grounds, there was no clear camera footage. The best I could find was her car in the distance with passing traffic blocking the view. I watched the whole 10 minutes, starting from where they got off the car to when she realized the iPad wasn't there anymore and came storming back. I saw several people passed by during that time, but at no point could the actual theft be seen. I did notice a blurry man took a longer time than everyone else walking by her car, so we pointed this out when we sent her the footage. The mom was pissed. She said the footage was useless, since she couldn't even see who the man was or where he was heading, but sadly, there was nothing else we could do. She threw a big fuss and even put a bad Google review, claiming this school covers up for thieves. Apparently she wanted us to pay for the damages. It's been a week now and she has finally calmed down. So boring ending to this story. I'm just baffled at the entitlement of wanting everyone else to pay for her ridiculous mistakes. Tease. Stories number 2. Aita for calling my coworker work sister after she called me work husband in front of everyone. I3 for work in a small office and we have about 30 people working here. Mary 35F is one of my coworkers. We have been working together for 6 years now. We have 6 people in our department and we have to frequently travel across the state as our work involves overseeing government projects. We always travel in a group of 2, although my travel partner changes based on the project. Mary and I are generally put on similar projects and enjoy each other's company. My wife also likes Mary. Overall, we have a very healthy work relationship. On to the incident yesterday. We had a happy hour in our office and we were all drinking after work hours and chatting. It was a group of around 10 people that stayed back. Mary was blabbering about how we both have been traveling together so much in the last year. She was roasting me for my habits while traveling, like always forgetting stuff in my hotel room, being sweaty and stinky when I join her for breakfast in mornings because I go to hotel gym. Everyone was laughing and she was making it sound how unbearable I was. The tag along, all in good fun. I also told some funny and sweet stories about her and agreed with her, saying that I can be difficult to be with sometimes. Mary came to me and hugged me tightly and told me that she loves me and I am her work husband. It was all innocent on surface, but she might have been a bit drunk and just didn't let go of her tight hug. Also, I hate that phrase, as I do have a wife that I promise to be with forever and not just in non-working hours. After a few seconds I started becoming uncomfortable and also saw few people staring at us, so to diffuse the situation I took her hands off my shoulder and told her she was my work sister and that is why I love to know her so much. That seemed to have upset Mary and she left and went back to her desk and was sobbing silently. I tried to apologize to her, but she told me how embarrassing the whole situation was. She said that she just meant work husband in platonic way, but me calling her work sister made her sound like a creep in front of the whole office. She was also angry that I aggressively removed her hands from my shoulders while hugging. I tried to reason with her that I do not like the work husband phrase, and also people gave dirty looks when she said it, so I was just trying to make sure people do not take her words in the wrong way. We talked for a few minutes afterwards and Mary calmed down. She hugged me again and left. I felt really guilty afterwards because I can see Mary's point. I made her sound like a creep by implying that she meant something inappropriate when she called me her work husband. However, I was a bit uncomfortable in that situation and just did not want people to call us that or assume something wrong. Am I the off for calling Mary my work sister? I am sitting in my office writing this and a bit worried. If I embarrassed Mary in front of everyone. Update July 2nd, 2024. I posted this on about calling my coworker Mary my work sister. After she tried to call me her work husband in front of the entire office. A lot of you are asking for update, but that sub does not allow me to post update, so I am writing it here. Thanks everyone for your comments and giving me confidence that I did not do anything wrong or inappropriate. As I was sitting in office the next day, I knew things would be a bit awkward between Mary and me. Mary ignored me the whole morning. Initially I was planning to go and apologize to her, but after the post I decided that I do not need to do that, as I should be the one who was offended. Everyone in the office could see that we were acting weird. Dan, I heard some people gossiping about us. One of the ladies also came to me and asked me if I want to talk about Mary and me. Around 3 p.m. in the afternoon, I was sitting in my office working. Mary came into my office and closed the door behind her. She was angry at me and started saying that I need to stop being an asshole and stop ignoring her. I told her to sit and to talk about what is going on. She told me that she feels humiliated and everyone has been starting at her the whole morning because of what I did. I also stood my ground and told her that I was okay with her making fun of me, but calling me her work husband and hugging me in front of everyone for a long time made the situation awkward. She told me to get over myself and that I should know exactly what she meant. Mary said that I made a big deal of what was supposed to be a joke and made it awkward for everyone. She said calling someone work husband is a normal thing and just means that she knows me intimately, like a spouse would. She said that because we spend so much time traveling together, she knows all the intimate details of how I behave outside work. I stopped her and told her that I felt offended by the term work husband because I have a wife and I do not want people to use that term to describe our relationship. I told her that she would not understand as she is single, but as a married man, I really do not want anyone to describe me as a husband in any capacity. She said that I am again misinterpreting what she was saying. She felt that as we have known each other more time than I have been married, she knows me more intimately, and even my wife. I have no idea why she feels that way, and I also behave like her husband when we travel together. She went on about how we go out to dinners together after work, how I always insist on having breakfast together in morning to plan our actions of the day, and I walk around in my underwear, referring to my gym shorts, around her in mornings. She also talked about how we spend hours talking to each other during road trips and how I am the only man she can trust with any secret in her life. She said that I am the definition of work husband and I am just in denial. I was a bit angry at this point. I told her that I do all that because I consider her my friend and she is delusional if she feels she knows me more intimately and my wife. I told her I do not want to hear that term again, and it is extremely disrespectful to my marriage. Only one woman gets to call me her husband, and that is my wife. Moreover, if my actions are giving her such ideas, maybe we need to stop being friends. She became apologetic afterwards and told me that she did not mean to disrespect my wife, and it was not her intention. She apologized to me and told me to just let it go. She said that she loves traveling with me and she does not want anything to change between us. She again said that I am misinterpreting her statement and just wants to move on. She came to hug me again, but I just told her it was okay and stepped back. I also talked to my wife about the incident that night. As expected, my wife was angry at Mary and told me that she hates the term work husband. She asked me if Mary has ever flirted with me during our trips or has a crush on me. I truthfully told her that I really have not felt that way, and she may have just said that because she was a bit drunk and is now being stubborn about it. My wife said that she feels a bit uncomfortable about Mary now and says that it's strike one for Mary and I need to try and put more distance between us while traveling. If she ever repeat the same behavior again, I should report her to HR. I promised my wife that I would try to reduce my interactions with Mary outside work hours and be more guarded around her. New update September 3, 2024. I wrote a while ago regarding my coworker friend Mary being upset with me for calling her my work sister, and she called me her work husband in front of everyone. I'm sorry to leave everyone hanging, but the next few weeks were busy and the issue was eventually resolved. Thanks to everyone for the comments, they really helped me when I talked to my manager about the situation. However, the last week has been crazy, so I wanted to get some opinions on what I should do next. After my last post, my wife and I were no longer comfortable with Mary's behavior. Although a part of me thought I was overreacting and that it was just part of Mary's personality, I felt the need to protect myself. I requested a meeting with my manager and HR to document my side of the story, wrote down everything, and told them about the incident at the party, as well as Mary coming into my office and the comments she made. I made it clear that while I did not want them to take action against her, I wanted to emphasize that her behavior made me uncomfortable, especially her comments about knowing me better than my wife and remarks about my shorts. My manager had already heard about the incident at the happy hour. As everyone in the office was talking about it, he told me he would try to shake up the travel schedule to minimize our travel together. The issue was that only 4 people in our company generally work on off-site audits, and the other 2 coworkers did not want to split up because they claimed they worked well together. As a result, I continued traveling with Mary for the next couple of weeks, but it was awkward and I kept my distance. My manager then called Mary and me to his office and informed us that he was planning to train a new auditor, Carolina 26F, and set up a schedule where she would travel with me for 1 week and then with Mary the following week. We were asked to train her. I liked this arrangement because it meant I no longer had to travel with Mary. Carolina turned out to be a great travel buddy, and I made sure not to get too comfortable with her. I always dressed professionally when we went for breakfasts, avoided late-night drinks, and maintained healthy boundaries. Things were great until last week. Last Tuesday, I could feel everyone staring at me when I entered the office, and I was immediately called to a meeting with my manager and HR. HR asked if I had anything to report regarding Caroline and if she had made any advances toward me during our work trips. I told them no, that Carolina had been very professional the entire time. I asked why I was being interrogated, and they told me they couldn't disclose any further details, but that Carolina was being investigated by HR for inappropriate conduct. I left the meeting and Mary came to my office asking what had happened. She mentioned and that she was also told Carolina would no longer be traveling with us and that we were asked to travel together again. I told her I had no idea what was going on. I messaged Carolina to see if she was okay and if she needed to talk. She asked if she could come to my office, and I agreed. Carolina explained that someone anonymously sent messages to her boyfriend, posing as someone from the office. Over the weekend, the message included screenshots of Carolina sending some inappropriate pictures she had taken in her hotel rooms during our travels, and flirtatious messages. This person claimed to her boyfriend that Carolina was trying to cheat with him at work and he was just trying to warn them. Her boyfriend went crazy after seeing the pictures, ghosted her, and then sent the messages to HR. As revenge, Carolina was in tears, telling me that she had only taken those pictures for her boyfriend and had no idea how they got leaked or how those messages even existed. Her boyfriend was furious because he also received the exact pictures from Carolina and knew they weren't fake. I consoled Carolina, but she's in deep trouble as our workplace takes such things very seriously because we work on government contracts, and I'm sure everyone suspects I'm the anonymous messenger. I was told that the matter would be investigated and Mary and I would be working together on the project. Again, my manager said there was nothing he could do and also mentioned that they might go through my emails and messages on my company phone as part of the investigation into Carolina. Mary seems very happy about the whole situation and keeps talking about how excited she is to revisit the restaurants and bars we used to frequent during off-site trips. She also keeps referring to Caroline as that pervert. The whole thing is just crazy. My wife, of course, believes that I would never do anything inappropriate with Carolina and that I wasn't the anonymous messenger. However, her conspiracy theory is that Mary, who was also traveling with Carolina, may have unlocked her phone and accessed the photos. It feels far-fetched, but the fact is I'm not thrilled about traveling with Mary again. I don't think I have any other recourse to get off this project except leaving the job, which isn't possible at this time. I know many of you work in HR and I would appreciate any advice on what I can do next. Stories number 3. Male coworker is obsessed with my PTO. My company has an unlimited and flexible time off policy. I always let my direct supervisor know if I'm taking any days off, usually at least 2 weeks ahead of time. I also work remotely, if that is relevant. My 27F male coworker, 38 meters, who has been with the company 6 years, has made comments about my vacation and night time off a habit of his every other month. Take a Friday off with the approval of my manager to use as a day to drive to my adventure spot for the weekend, or as a day to catch up on errands or appointments. My coworker always makes a comment during the following Friday update call where my boss is not present. Other examples: Thanksgiving last year, he asked if I was going to be present at all during Thanksgiving week. I said yes except Wednesday. He then retorts, "I thought you would be take off the entire week." Like, okay. I have been trying to get my team up to speed with my workload, as I am taking a 2-week trip to Europe starting next week that my manager approved back in January when plane tickets were cheap. And he makes a big hoopla about it and asks, "Why do you take so much vacation? Don't you only get 15 days? I remind him that we have unlimited and that my manager approved it in January. I don't know what to do anymore. This is my first ever vacation that I have taken an actual week off since being with this company 2 years, and he always makes a comment on my random 1 day here or 2 days here. I am not sure what else to do. I have not brought it up with my manager, but I have screenshots of his emails and I have an ongoing log of his comments he makes during Teams calls. Edit: to add more context, we are both under the same unlimited toe policy. His boss, whom if worked for, is very accommodating, and I don't see him disapproving of his subordinates taking toe. Secondly, we are both in the USA. Edit: 2. I have confronted him in the past, maybe 6 months ago, when he made a snarky comment about me taking a half day, and I remember saying, "Do you want me to include you in my toe approval emails from now on?" And he stammer. I have also asked him, "Why do you ask?" and he squirms, but this is clearly not enough for him to stop. Edit: 3. Some commenters saying, "Well, maybe 15 is what you should follow. Maybe you should be taking around that much." No, I am following PTO policy, and my manager has approved every email I have sent requesting out of office and has never brought it up as something of issue. This line of thinking is why the US has a toxic workaholic culture. Stories number 4. My 3 for F husband for M threatened me during an argument. Would you be concerned? A few years ago, we had a huge argument, and I was so angry that I said a few things about husband's mother. His mother, Ann, I don't get along, and she's treated me like a nobody since day one. I have my own personal reasons to dislike her, and even though my husband denies and downplays everything, I still have a right to feel how I feel. I know it was wrong to even bring his mother into an argument, but I was angry. My husband has said many things about my mother before I even mentioned his. Fast forward to now, we were arguing once again, and his mother wasn't brought up and hasn't been brought up for years, yet he randomly says, "Why am I even with you? All of the things that you said about my mother, imagine if something happens to her, imagine what I would do to you." And then he said, "Keep playing around and see." I feel like this is a threat because his mother will eventually die. I'm not sure what to think about this. Stories number 5. Aita for getting sick of my boyfriend. At first it was going very well. He's super sweet and shows he cares, which I'm not really used to, and not used to a vulnerable man. He tears and cries a lot whenever he talks about us or me, and I don't know, seeing that reoccurring over and over kinda turned me off. He's also very opinionated, and I notice that he's very close-minded. He sees things as black and white. He's a bad driver, which also turned me off, and he has bad road rage and yells, blames other people when it is actually his fault. I hate to use this word, but I now understand it's such a big ICK. He's very needy, and maybe it was my mistake because I kind of allowed some of these things to happen. We sleep on the phone together, and if I don't want to, he gets upset or offended. He's used to being on the phone for hours, and TBH sometimes I just need alone time or time for myself, and I try to cut the conversation short to 30 minutes, and he will be like, "But Dave, we usually talk for an hour." I was really blaming myself, thinking, okay, you are feeling icky and wrong about him because you're used to a man that doesn't care, but gosh, literally am so bothered by him. He makes one mistake and I go off like a madman. I lose my temper very easily with him, and I hate that this version of me is coming out, but at the same time, I feel like I'm making the right choice. Because he's so needy and anxiously attached, I kind of see it as manipulative. He knows my heart and he knows I don't want to hurt his feelings, so he will make sure he words things to make me feel bad about my choices. He talks over me a lot, asks me questions, and then talks over me. He talks during movies, drives me absolutely insane. Whenever we have arguments, he always points the finger at me and asks why I'm upset, and then talks over me the whole time, and then asks me why I'm Yelling oh and something I really don't like. I feel like my mind no longer belongs to me. I have no privacy. I am very open when it comes to trust what he randomly searches me up, whether it's an account on Twitter, Snapchat, YouTube. He looks and finds it and tells me, add me babe, like WTF. He also has the audacity of tracking my followers on Instagram. Get this, he has 4K followers and is following 4,000 people. Used to be a SoundCloud rapper. Another account I have 450 to 500 in followers and am as cool as a cucumber. I have the more reason to be tracking things. I can just sick and tired and sleep deprived. I didn't build the strongest boundaries and am paying for them. I feel super terrible. I really thought he was going to be my future husband and the father of my kids because I was so enamored by the way he treated me at first, and now he has an idea in his head and talks about it all the time. It's getting hard to say I love you. I know what I have to do. I just hate hurting him. Please guys, I need an opinion. I know at this point I should let him go, but does this actually seem like just anxious attachment or manipulation or Aita? Stories number 6. Am I to 5F just ungrateful? Emotional advice. For context, I am not the type of person that necessarily likes to receive gifts. Even if I really like a gift, I never know how to react to being given a gift, and most of my reaction isn't genuine. Reading the gift giver's reaction to try and give them what I think they want, it can feel stressful and makes me often feel bad when I feel like I didn't give the right reaction. Receiving gifts is an internal emotional nightmare in many instances for me. However, I am always outwardly and internally very appreciative. When someone gives me a gift, I never give negative feedback, and I work very hard to try and make sure they know that it means a lot that they thought about me. That being said, my roommates recently got me a small basket of things because they knew I was having a bad week. It was a thoughtful gesture, and I told them how much I appreciated it and that they were very kind, and so on and so forth. They seemed pleased with themselves and happy that I liked the gift. The only problem I didn't in my basket were 6 things. About 2 out of the 6 things are things I'd actually use or enjoy. This wouldn't feel like such a problem had my roommates and I not had long discussions about what kind of gifts I'd like to receive. When we had that talk, I wrote down what they said, and I believe vice versa, but I'm not certain. When receiving gifts, the best kind of gift to receive would be items I use daily or gift cards. By items I use daily, I mean like shampoo, conditioner, my preferred skincare items, laundry detergent, practical stuff that most wouldn't consider gifts. By do I explain that I constantly have a mental load that is always weighing on me, and gifts like that relieve some of my day-to-day stress. If I came home and someone had left me a huge thing of my preferred toilet paper and laundry detergent, I have the time of my life. One time, one of my roommates washed my sheets for me while I was at work, and I cried on her shoulder because I was so appreciative. I'm a practical acts of service kind of person who doesn't like clutter and really only owns what she needs. So when they gave me a gift of a hairball, I don't wear those, a journal and a pen. I appreciated the thought, but I don't use journals. Ranch Cheez-Its, I have never eaten those and do not buy cheese. So foot mask and slippers, I'll use these, and a pre-roll that we all ended up sharing. I was just a little bit upset. Like I said, outwardly I was grateful, but inside I was just upset. I felt unseen, and as though this gift that was supposed to make me happy was just making my roommates happy. This may also be a problem because I harbor some spoken resentment towards my roommates for not helping out around the house, although I've been asking for months. So am I just ungrateful? I know it's the thought that counts. Stories number 7. What did your life look like after divorce? Happy stories, please. I am going through an unexpected and unwanted divorce. We're both in our 30s, no kids, just a mortgage and a truck payment. But he has gotten lawyers involved, and it's going to be messy. We were together 8 years, married for 4. It's hard not to see my life as ruined in having to let go of most of the things I've worked for, and most of my dreams. Recovering seems impossible right now. It's been just over 2 months since shit hit the fan, and I'm still barely functioning. I've gotten a lot of advice, but what I'd really like to hear are stories of how things got better. Even better would be reconciliation stories, even as I know it's unlikely. Edit. Wanted to add that this person was until recently the best person I've known. No abuse for 7 years. We had a wonderful relationship. The last year had been more rocky, but we were both making changes to improve, plus some of it was outside of our control. If you had told me the day before shit hit the fan, I would have said no way could he do anything like this ever. Also, I hate dating, solo traveling, and making new friend. My dream is this far and I've been building, and I can't manage it on my own physically or financially. It's hard to get so close to a dream then have it all ripped away. Stories number 8. Never add your coworkers on social media. You will regret sooner or later. I made an expensive mistake of accepting a coworker's friend request on Instagram. I'm into fashion, so I love buying designer expensive outfits and jewelry, so of course my Instagram had pictures of me wearing these items at different events. A week later she messaged to borrow some of these outfits and jewelry for her sisters, adding because she is trying to save money. My initial reaction was WTF. For a coworker's I know less than a month is straight up in my DMs asking for my personal items, but I let my empathic feelings get in the way that if I can help her save some money, then why not? It would be a good deed. She asked me for 2 to 3 outfits plus the jewelry I was wearing, but I gave her just one. Luckily she tried the outfit and said she liked it and it fit her. She goes to the wedding and I'm watching her Instagram stories thinking to myself, wonder when she is going to wear it, how she styled it, etc. And nothing. I don't see my outfit being worn anywhere. She comes back and starts avoiding me. I was very busy at work, so at one point I even forgot. But then it struck me that she still has my belongings. I was contemplating on how to ask her to return my belongings and was mad that she should have done that as the first thing herself without me even having to ask. A year passed away like this. She still hasn't returned. One day I gathered all my courage and messaged her to bring my borrow items tomorrow. She acted like she forgot. Tomorrow comes another excuse, so I cannot find it. Excuse me, TF do you mean by that? I lent you something valuable considering your situation, and you don't even have the decency to return my item timely. One more month passes like this. Every day she gave new excuses that made me believe that she must have sold it off, kept it, or gave to someone else. She made me beg 1.5 years to return my own stuff. Finally she brought it back and carefully chose a time to return it where she wouldn't have to confront me directly. I was in a meeting wearing headsets. You would think I would have gotten a thank you and a sorry at the very least. None. On top of that, she stopped speaking to me after that, which makes no sense. Are you mad because I asked for my stuff back? Long story short, never add coworkers to social media and never ever lend them anything. Stories number 9. How I discovered my wife's secret affair and the unexpected twist that followed. Hey Reddit, I'm a long-time lurker and have never posted anything like this before, but I'm in need of some perspective and advice. I'm still reeling from what happened and I'd really appreciate your thoughts. A bit of background. My wife Emma and I have been married for 7 years. We have a seemingly perfect life, good jobs, a cozy home, and a tight-knit group of friends. Emma's always been supportive and loving, so when I noticed a few small but odd things over the past couple of months, I pushed them aside, chalking them up to stress at work, or maybe my own overthinking. It all started a few months ago when Emma began working late more frequently. First, I assumed it was just busy season at her job. Then there were the little things. She started being more protective of her phone and would often step out to take calls privately. I told myself I was being paranoid, but something didn't sit right. Last week, I decided to surprise Emma by picking up her favorite takeout and coming home early to set up a little date night. When I walked in, my heart nearly stopped. There was Emma's phone on the kitchen counter buzzing non-stop. The notifications were visible and they were from someone named Jason, a name I didn't recognize. I hesitated, but decided to check it out, thinking it might just be a work colleague. What I found was gut-wrenching. The messages were clearly romantic, filled with terms of endearment and plans for the weekend. I was devastated and couldn't believe what I was reading. It became clear that Emma was involved with Jason and their relationship was serious. Before confronting Emma, I needed to gather more information. I found some photos on her phone that showed them together, smiling and obviously close. My heart was racing and I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and sadness. The confrontation happened that evening when Emma came home. I was calm, but direct, laying out the evidence I'd found. Her reaction was one I wasn't prepared for: shock, guilt, and tears. She admitted to the affair and said it had been going on for the past 6 months. Here's the twist. As we talked, Emma revealed that Jason was actually a therapist she'd been seeing to address personal issues. She claimed she had developed feelings for him, but that the relationship had become more than just professional. She assured me that it was over and she wanted to work on our marriage. I'm at a crossroads now. Part of me wants to walk away feeling betrayed and unable to trust her again. Another part is considering trying to rebuild our relationship, especially given Emma's willingness to seek help and her genuine remorse. I'm reaching out to you all because I'm struggling with whether to give our marriage another chance or to move on. How would you handle this situation? Have any of you been through something similar? I could really use your advice and support right now. Thanks for reading, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Stories number 10. Aita for making a GoFund to support my family after my narcissistic husband left us. IF40 for have been married for 22 years to a narcissist. M42 we will call him C. We F for kids together F20M18. And twins N May N and FA. I have endured years of psychological, financial, and a small amount of physical abuse at his hands. He is an alcoholic and will abuse my pain medicine if he can get a hold of them. When he is drunk or high, it is like a Jekyll and Hyde situation. He hasn't worked for about a year and refuses to even look for a job. I am disabled and have been in a wheelchair for 18 years. About a year and a half ago I had my leg amputated above the knee. I tell you all this to explain that I am no stranger to basically doing everything on my own while he downplays and degrades me. Have been making our family's financial situation work from my SSI check of $600 a month and just enough DoorDash work to not stop my benefits. All our van through a rot and my wheelchair broke, so I had a few months of fighting with insurance and being basically bedbound. I had a conversation with him about needing more help from him as we were barely getting by and the twins needed new school clothes. He of course did the opposite. He then proceeded to pick a fight with my 17-year-old son where he told him, I'm just waiting for you to turn 18 next month so I can drag you out into the desert and beat your ass without it being child abuse. I told him he had to go. I had told this in the past and he would just refuse. This time he actually left and moved in with his mother in a different state. Okay, so that left me to clean up the mess. No problem, that's what I have to do anyway. But now I had no car and no wheelchair. I did get one a week after he left, but he didn't even wait for me to be mobile before leaving. That was in July. And it is now September. The shut-off notices are starting to come in. A few days ago, out of desperation, I made a GoFundMe asking for help to get a used car and the deposit necessary to move to a house closer to my support network. I explained that I just really needed help getting to a point where I can support us again on my own. Why barely mention C in one line that said he had left us in July. Don't know how he even saw it because I didn't post it on any of my social media. But he did now. He and his family are calling and texting me nonstop. They say I am a gold-digging CT for asking strangers on the internet for money. He also insists that I only posted it to make him look bad for not being able to support us. I don't understand why they are so mad. No one has even contributed anything to the fund, and I kind of believe no one will in this economy. Everyone I know is struggling, so I don't blame them for not being able to help me, but I will leave it up to you guys. Aita for making the GoFundMe. Stories number 11. How did you guys choose what engineering to study? I have found myself turning to Reddit, so I 22 am still deciding what I want to study. I know I feel like I should have already decided, but thing just isn't so black and white to me. For a little background, I have an associate's degree in engineering science from my community college last year. I transferred to a technological school to study a B.S. in applied mathematics, but I didn't like it. I didn't like my school and I felt like my degree was preparing me for a career in academia rather than getting a job in the real world. I quickly realized I did not want to be in school for the foreseeable future. I dropped out of the program and am looking to transfer to a state school, which is cheaper, and to study something more lucrative like engineering. I just can't seem to narrow down. I'm mostly interested in civil engineering, industrial, or mechanical. How did you guys decide what engineering you wanted to do? Since I already have my associates, I feel like there is not much wiggle room for me to take classes in every discipline to figure out what I like. I think that's like a freshman, sophomore thing to do. I just want to get it over with. My high school class graduated 2020. 4 years later. Makes graduated already and am still trying to decide what I want to study, and it's ridiculous. Truth be told, whatever I choose, I'm scared I'll hate it or won't be able to do it. I know it's a silly mindset, but I think it's very human. I've taken quizzes and some have said mechanical or civil or industrial. but I just can't seem to choose. Another issue is I'm a server, bartender downtown in a populated city. I like talking to people and working with them, but I also absolutely love having an active job. I cannot sit down. I don't want to sacrifice that. So I would like an active job where I can be in the field but also work amongst others. Also, what do you all think about a degree in engineering? Like ABS engineering, some schools offer them, but how are they viewed by employers? Is it lucrative, or is it better to choose a specific engineering? Any advice? Stories number 12. Someone took out about $90,000 in loans in my name. I suspect it was my mom since she doesn't want me to go to the police. Maybe this is partially my fault for still having a checking account with both my name and my mom's name on it from when I was a minor. I happened to check an old email account and saw a couple emails from about 3 weeks ago from a credit report tracker that said I had new accounts opened in my name. Seeing as I haven't opened a new account since I bought my house last year, I thought it was weird and decided to double-check my credit. Sure enough, 3 personal loans were now on my account that were opened last month. None of them had any payment history yet. I'm freaking out over this and I let my parents know about it. My dad told me to call the police. My mom tells me to give it a couple of weeks because it might be a mistake. If they are still on there, then make police report. There is no way that nearly $90,000 in loans on my credit is a mistake. I was able to get the bank account information for 2 of the 3 loans pretty easily, and they both go back to a bank where I had a joint checking account with my mom several years ago when I was a minor. They confirmed the money wired overseas and put a hold on the account when I told them what happened. The timing is also extremely suspicious, as my mom is literally moving out of the country next week. She just retired and came back from Peru last month, after having purchased a condo where she and my stepdad are moving. I'm just freaking out right now and have been the entire weekend. My credit score has dropped about 150 points and I'm not sure where to start to clean it up. Stories number 13. Aita for not sharing the surprises in the dingy house that was my share of inheritance. Update 3. I wanted to thank everyone for the words of advice and ideas. How to go about finding out what is in the freezer. I also have a mini update on Mason fake name. I will get the freezer out of the way because I know so many are eager to hear about it. I called over my lawyer friend Lauren's fake name, neat lil play on words yeah, and explained that I needed more information on a few things. But would need a house call because of the contractors coming and going. When he arrived and no one was there, he looked annoying until I explained the freezer. He told me if we found a body, he was bailing but was laughing as we went down to the basement. This was all yesterday. We put on gloves and the masks. He held the camera and said all this identifying stuff like date, time, address, etc. I opened it. Inside were important documents sealed in a lot of plastic. There were also old bottles of moonshines, frozen pressed flowers in a book with dates, a bit of cash coins, specifically, and an ancient-looking porcelain doll. The documents were birth certificates and death certificates. Going back quite a while, it looks like I would have had another sibling if they had lived, and I would have had 3 more aunts if they had lived, and a few other even older relatives. We figure the flowers were from the funerals or services considering the dates. Attached the pages the flowers were pressed. The bottles, jars really of moonshine looked old. The only reason I knew it was moonshine was thanks to Lawrence. He said alcohol doesn't usually freeze, and he opened it and told me based on the smell. The coins will be appraised very soon, as I am also still going through all the other coins have found in the curtains and other odd places. Thank you to the Redditor who told me to look in the curtains. As for the doll, it looks very old but in good condition. It was in a box and wrapped with cloth, old newspapers, and more. Lawrence thinks the hair on its head is real and human because it certainly isn't synthetic. I had to dry it off after it thawed, and there is a name smudged on its foot. It's sitting on my living room coffee table right now. I'm not sure what to do with it. The newspaper dates give us a vague idea of the time frame it was put away in, and it's old. On to Mason. His wife has filed for divorce. She is going for full custody. She has the kids with her at her mother's. She reached out to me and explained that Mason had told her the only thing left was the house, and it was willed to all 3 of them, and that he was waiting for me to buy out his part of the house. But when I sent that message, something seemed hinky, so she started to dig. Mason has maxed out all their credit cards, A house is now on a reverse mortgage. When it had been paid off and he opened a few in her name. He didn't use that life-changing money left to him to pay off any of that. She isn't sure where the money went, but when she locked down her credit it left him unable to use the cards he took out in her name, and it sparked a massive fight. I can't even begin to imagine where the money has gone. He doesn't have new cars, new devices, new anything. Their 2 kids, 14 F and 10M, are both old enough to understand what is going on. They won't talk to him until he tells them why they are losing their childhood home, why he hurt their mom, and where all the money is. My niece knows all the accounts are empty, including her college account, and she is furious. My nephew isn't as worried about college, understandable. Mason keeps messaging me about how it's all your fault and just overall being nasty. I would have blocked him if it wasn't for the fact we are collecting evidence. My sister admitted he is ranting to her about it all, but she doesn't want to get him upset at her because they live just a few blocks away from each other, so it's easier for him to come knocking on her door. Despite that, she will not be staying with me. My fence should be starting built any day now. I will be getting my 2 dogs tomorrow. I think I have everything I need. So, that is everything so far. Stories number 14. Aita, for thinking about canceling my wedding and leaving my fiancé. I am going to try to not make this super long, but I want to be as detailed as possible. I 32F met my now 38 meters fiancé 2 years ago. In the beginning things were going great. He has 2 kids, I have 2 kids. We have a lot of the same interests. We help each other out if needed financially wise, it's great. He was super affectionate, always talked either via text or phone on work breaks when we were apart. He lived about an hour away, so commuting wasn't always easy, but we made it happen. About 5 to 6 months in, we decided that we wanted to move in together at his family member's home while we saved up for our own place. Things were still going okay, and then slowly he stopped being affectionate as often. We started fighting and things seemed to just slowly get worse until we got our new place. When we moved in things stayed the same, and then one day last month everything changed. He was more affectionate, more loving, caring. He was acting like the man I fell in love with. I wasn't as depressed. I felt like I had that spark back and it was great. Fast forward to this last Friday. It was my weekend with my kids and it went as normal as it normally does, but my fiancé was in a sour mood. He kept bitching about having to go to his family member's house to do laundry, since we don't have a washer and dryer in the new place yet. And he said he would do it and push it to the next day. Well, Sunday was his birthday and he decided that today he was going to go do laundry at his family member's house. While I dropped off my kids with my ex-husband, things seemed fine. I told him I wanted to take us out for a birthday dinner, saying he was too tired and didn't want me to waste money on it since we had food at home. I didn't argue. I just dropped off the kids and came home. When I got home, I knew he was still out, so I texted him to let him know I made it home and that I was doing some light cleaning and such. I was going to surprise him with his favorite homemade cake and some little treats. Since he isn't the type of guy who wasn't interested in gifts, every time I surprised him with something he would mention in random conversations, he would make a fuss about it. But I would still do it because I know it still made him happy. We were texting back and forth and things seemed fine until I brought up me cleaning. He texts a snarky response back on the lines of, "Okay, so what?" I immediately thought, great, he's in a mood, so I left him be. He then drones on about his birthday is terrible and that he's not doing anything for me next year because I didn't do anything for him. I was hurt, but again didn't make a fuss because it was his birthday. Then when he goes on to say that I need to make sure I have enough money for myself until next paycheck, because he doesn't have anything in case of an emergency, don't ask him for money, unless it's for gas to commute to and from work, and just kept complaining about everything under the sun. I kept my cool until he got home, and then he proceeded to continue to bash me for not getting him a gift for his birthday and just doing everything he can to put me down. I gave him the cold shoulder for hours until I had enough, and while he was laying in bed, I grabbed my keys and took a drive to clear my head. While I was out, I called my sister and talked to her about what's going on. She immediately came to my defense and wanted to know if she needed to come over. I told her no, I am out in town, parked in a random strip mall parking lot just trying to clear my head. I then posted a random Facebook post not saying anything. Got a gif of someone hitting their head against the wall and he then texts me asking me if I left. I was gone for almost 2 hours at this point, and he just now noticed. Which put me into overthinking spiral of doom. I just told him I went out for a drive. He simply said "K" then while I was on my way home. Continued to bash me saying that I'm making the shit all about me and I about lost my shit. Again kept my cool and didn't respond. Talking with my sister about it, she made it clear she can't force me to. But she thinks that I really need to cancel my wedding and leave him. I am still on the fence about it since he's not always this way. But this game if in acting like a child is getting really old very fast. We also just moved into this place and I know he won't be able to afford it on his own. But I am at a loss of what to do, so doesn't it make me an asshole for wanting to call off my wedding and leave? Stories number 15. Aita for ditching a wedding that I F20 was the maid of honor in because the bride F20 tried to set me up with the best man M28. I was supposed to be the maid of honor at a wedding a few weeks ago. I ended up just leaving and going home to my boyfriend of 6 years. After the bride and groom tried to set me up with the best man. When my friend got engaged last year I was excited for her and even more excited when she asked me to be the maid of honor. As invites, out though she asked me to not bring my boyfriend to the wedding. I was really upset about that but my boyfriend talked me down, telling me that weddings were expensive and they were probably trying to keep the guest list down. And they didn't really know him so it would be fine for me to go without him. That made sense to me so I didn't say or do anything after that. And just continued with helping as I could as the maid of honor. Nothing else really concerning happened again, until a couple of days before the wedding the bride asked me to give the best man a ride to and from the wedding which was about a 4 hours drive. I thought it was just part of it as he was a veteran and had his own issues surrounding that so I gave him a ride out to the Airbnb that we were staying at before the wedding. The whole time he tried to make conversation that was just weird to me and I was just not into it and just trying to my best to be nice to him. At the Airbnb with everyone I immediately noticed things were off. All of the other bridesmaids had their boyfriends there and things were really awkward. When I found out I was in a room with the best man. The next day before the rehearsal dinner the bride and groom cornered me in a room to say that the best man was an incredible guy and that I was blowing him off without really giving him a chance. I told him well of course not, I have a serious long-term boyfriend, which y'all specifically told me not to bring. Then the bride cut in and told me well that really isn't that serious since he hasn't proposed in so long. I argued back that was because we were both still in school. We continued arguing for a little while before I finally just said forget, I'm going home. I got called all sorts of awful names going out of the room and packed up and left. I got a lot of calls on the way home which I ignore until my boyfriend called. Apparently the bride called him and told him I just left for no reason and he called to check in on me. I told him everything that had happened and he was kind of dumbstruck by it all. Anyways, after the wedding I've had the bride, the groom, and a lot of their friends call or message me telling how horrible of a person I was for just leaving the night before the wedding for no reason, none of which were receptive to my side of things, and it's starting to worry me that maybe I overreacted by just leaving like that. Anyway, Aita told Doctor left a wedding because the couple-to-be were mad I wasn't giving the best man a chance, even though I've been with someone else since I was 14. Edit. I started dating my BF in high school. He's 2 years older than me. My friends don't really know my BF, since he doesn't go to the same school as us, and when we do see each other it's usually halfway between our schools. Stories number 16. Am I overacting? Accidentally made my neighbor hate me by inviting him over for drinks. Well, this is gonna sound probably really dumb, but I thought was trying to be nice. I'm in my late 20s. And just moved in next to an older couple, probably late 50s, maybe early 60s. I've been here a couple of months and have had conversations with them about 4 times during different yard work activities. My neighbors seem to be big sticklers on taking care of their yard, so I am doing my best to take care of mine as well. One thing with each of these conversations, the neighbors have talked about how the last neighbor also saying that he would go to work and go straight inside. So I've tried my best to kind and talking with them. Well, one day after some yard work, I was going to go in for drinks and noticed my neighbor finishing up as well, so I offer if he wanted to have a couple of drinks. This made my neighbor visibly mad, I guess, and he said that he didn't want to be that neighborly. And he only drinks water. Noticed his tone change, like he was offended. I asked. Again. I was just trying to be nice. Well, I've now learned that they're most likely a faith that doesn't drink, not sure, but some sort of form Christianity. Was it stupid of me to offer? Now I just feel like they hate me and have not talked to me, and made sure they're always inside when I go to Mao. I realized that I was most likely wrong to ask, but I'm not sure how to stop being stressed and anxious by this happening. Edit. Yes, this was an offer of any drink. I wouldn't have had something alcoholic unless he did. All I had on hand were light beers anyway. Also to it, I did say drinks. It was hot and I have tea, lemonade, and get a red ready to share. I think he just immediately assumed alcohol. Stories number 17. F for leaving my partner because he won't move out. I too have been with my BF to 5M for around 2 years now. I have been staying with him and his parents for almost a year now, as I'm homeless. Issues keep coming up every time I almost secure housing. It's been about 4 years of this as I entered homelessness after leaving out of home care. I wanted to talk to my BF about potentially moving out together. He reacted not the best. He said he wasn't ready. I asked why he wasn't ready. He got defensive and told me he can't think about it right now. This has been the same reaction he's had to almost anything I've brought up. Seeing the doctor, seeing a therapist, etc. I try my hardest to understand the way he feels. I have a history of trauma and severe mental health issues, so I do feel I understand, maybe not exactly how he feels, but I do understand what he's been through, and it sucks. I got a bit annoyed and asked if he ever thinks he will be ready to think about it. He cracked it and raised his voice, telling me maybe not, maybe I'll never be ready. I probably will, but I can't tell the future, can I? I ended up just leaving it and crying quietly. Within 5 minutes he was joking around, acting like nothing had happened. I told him tonight in a light conversation that I would like to have a chat about it. He asked what there was to talk about. 5 he felt he'd said everything he needed to. I told him I would like to have an actual calm conversation about it, etc. It ended up in an argument, and he kept saying 5 things about me not understanding and forcing him to change, relating it to leaving someone who's broken both their legs because they don't know if they'll ever walk again. I just kept calmly trying to explain that I did understand that he's not ready, however, that I am at a point I'd like to move in with someone and start stabilizing our life together. I explained I'd like to start looking at starting a family within the next 3 to 5 years. I told him that I understand if he wasn't ready and that was completely fine, however, that I feel we may be incompatible. He said something about, so what you're telling me is I'm not good enough and you don't like me. I don't understand if I'm just explaining it wrong to him or if I'm just an asshole. I understand I have trouble understanding how others are feeling sometimes, but this is one of those situations where I just can't understand what I'm saying doing wrong. I do love him, but I know I'm capable of finding and loving someone else. Someone who's at the same point in life as me. We have only been together for 2 years. I appreciate everything he has done for me, obviously. If he's only letting me stay here because I'm his girlfriend, then I would honestly rather be living in my car anyway. TDLR. Am I the off for wanting to end my relationship as my partner and I are at completely different points in life? I am ready to move in with someone and start a life together. He is focused on walking, eating, band practice, things like that. He feels like I'm forcing him to do something he can't, but I'm letting him know I understand that he can't, but I feel we may be incompatible. Stories number 18. Found gift card in bag that I purchased from a hotel. Would it be morally wrong to keep it? Background. My sister is getting married at a local boutique hotel in my hometown. Her best friend lives out of town and wanted to buy her a branded tote bag that the hotel sells on their website, but the shipping fee was $30. Best friend asks me to stop by the hotel to buy the bag with her credit card number. I go to the hotel and asked to purchase the bag, had to ask the front desk person about it because there is no shop in the hotel that sells merchandise. Front desk associate leaves the desk for about 5 minutes to find the bag, comes back with it, and purchase is made. I get home and look in the front pocket to see a $100 gift card not addressed to anyone. To a trendy new oyster bar downtown. All the card has written on it is $100. Dilemma. I would love to keep the gift card as my BF and I are on a budget. and haven't had a date night in months. I feel like the right thing to do would bring the card back, that the gift card wasn't addressed to anyone and was in a bag that was for sale. I also am worried that if I bring it back, the person I talk to may not know anything about it and not know what to do with it. What do y'all think? Any advice welcome, thanks. Edit. My sister nor her friend want it since they live out of town. I asked, friend is pregnant so no alcohol or oysters. Also, I scanned the QR code on the back of the gift card and it is loaded with $100. As mentioned above, the gift card is to a local oyster bar. It's not a Visa gift card or anything. Edit 2. I just looked up the hotel management group. They own several businesses around the city including the oyster bar the gift card is for. This means to me that the gift card was some sort of promotion, or at least paid for by the hotel. What do you all think? Edit 3 called the hotel. Called like I said I would in the early stages of the comments. They don't care and said it was my lucky gift card. The gift card was not placed in every bag. Also it is a valid gift card, it shows it on the QR code I scanned on the back. Very entertained while reading the comments section now though, especially by the people calling me a thief. Stories number 19. My partner proposed to me in a Starbucks, and now my parents are furious. Hi Reddit. I'm reaching out because I need some perspective on a situation that's been causing a lot of tension in my life lately. My partner, Alex, and I have been together for 5 wonderful years, and we've been talking about getting engaged for a while. When the moment finally came, it was everything we had hoped for except for one major problem. Our parents are absolutely livid about it. Here's the backstory. Alex and I aren't exactly the grand gesture type. We're both pretty introverted and prefer simple, meaningful experiences over flashy displays. So, when Alex decided to propose, they chose a place that holds a lot of sentimental value. For us, the Starbucks where we had our first date. It's our favorite coffee spot and it felt like the perfect, intimate setting. On the day of the proposal, Alex planned it beautifully. We went to Starbucks, ordered our usual drinks, and when our names were called, Alex got down on one knee and proposed right there in the corner where we first met. It was personal, heartfelt, and exactly what we both wanted. Here's where things took a turn. Our families were not impressed at all. My parents were initially excited for us, but were horrified when they found out about the proposal location. They think it's tacky and that we missed out on a chance for a more memorable and traditional experience. Alex's parents are even more upset, claiming that we didn't give the occasion the gravity deserved. They've been giving us the cold shoulder and are insisting we redo the proposal if we want their blessing. Now we're caught in a tough spot. Do we stick to our original, personal choice and accept that our parents might never understand, or do we consider having a redo just to make them happy? Even though it feels like it would go against everything we wanted. I'm genuinely torn. I want to honor our relationship and what feels right for us, but I also don't want to keep creating conflict with our families. What do you all think? Should we hold firm to our decision and embrace our unique proposal? Or should we give in to family expectations and put on a show for their sake? Looking forward to your thoughts and advice. TL. Doctor. Alex proposed to me in a Starbucks because it was special to us. Our parents think it's tacky and want us to redo it. Should we stay true to our choice or give in to their demands? Stories number 20. My 21F boyfriend to 2M is an awful person. Relationship advice. So I met my boyfriend, we'll call him Matt, when I was 15, and he was 17. Our whole story is kinda confusing, but here's the whole explanation. So in March 2019 when Yubo was popular, I met this girl Layla on there who lived in the next town over. We became friends and I developed a crush on Layla and eventually we started dating in May 2019. She had this friend Matt that she would hang out with every day. I was still with Layla when I started to get feelings for Matt. In June 2019 we finally met in person, us three and my stepsister Brooke. Brooke actually started to have feelings for Matt. She didn't know I liked him and they started dating at the end of June. Me and Layla broke up in July but stayed friends for a while. Meanwhile Matt and Brooke were constantly on and off until November. When they finally broke up in November I started to flirt with Matt. I know, not a good move behind Brooke's back. We stopped it in January 2020 and I stopped talking to Matt and Layla. Up until June of 2020, I reached back out to Matt and we quickly became besties again. In July of 2020, with Brooke's permission, we started dating. Fast forward to now September 2024, we have been together for 4.5 years. November 2020, my family moved an hour away from my boyfriend. It was rough for us as we were still fresh in the relationship, but we persevered and, until October 2021, we were doing a medium-distance relationship. In October of 21, I got kicked out of my mom's house by my stepdad giving my room to my stepbrother. I decided to move in with my BF and his parents. Now we have been living with his parents since. Up until about a year ago, we were going super strong. In October of 2023, I discovered that Matt was following a bunch of girls on TikTok and Instagram, all of which posted pictures of videos of them is open. I decided to dig deeper and I went through his computer. While doing that, I found a handful of screenshots of said posts in his Google Photos. All had timestamps of the last few months, June, September. He doesn't have Google Photos on his phone but had it all over his computer. I screenshotted, took pics of these pictures and confronted him. The only thing he had to say was sorry and that he'll unfollow these girls. Okay, whatever, I accepted it and moved forward. Until December I was happy, but I randomly got hit with this wave of unhappiness, so I reached out to my stepsister and her GF about it. Brooke and her GF decided that the best idea was to blackmail me by saying, if I didn't break up with Matt in X amount of time, that she'd text him from a secret account and say I was cheating on him. I wasn't even remotely doing anything like that. I found out about this from a different person and decided to try and break up with him. I didn't end up going fully through with it and eventually just told him about Brooke's plan. Brooke got pissed and blocked me and we haven't talked since. Me and my BF are still together. Now it's September 2020 for Matt and I seem to be doing okay. But recently, probably July, got hit with a huge wave of unhappiness. I barely want to partake in intercourse. I get extremely annoyed by his presence. Almost everything he does annoys me and I just feel like I'm wasting my time. Matt has always had an issue when it comes to changing his actions and behaviors. He is extremely racist and it's disgusting. He is also disgusting when it comes to people who are disabled, constantly making fun of them. Obviously, I don't engage in this behavior and I tell him every time that it's gross and he should stop. It's been like this for 4 years and he hasn't changed. It's only gotten worse. In public places, when babies start crying, he'll yell for them to shut up or to leave. It's so rude and off-putting. He will make fun of me and call me fat, but then, when I suggest we start going to the gym together, he laughs in my face. He also has a huge problem with touch my body randomly, and despite me saying that it annoys me or I don't want it, he keeps doing it. Sometimes we go weeks in between intimacy times because of me, and he constantly begs for it. He'll even book hotel rooms just so we can have a private, uninterrupted space for us. Most of the time they'll just give in to him begging me just to shut him up. I'm starting to think I'm just not attracted to him anymore and I think it's best to break it off, but I'm seriously stuck right now. So I live with him and his parents. I have a 14-year-old car that's on its last legs. I barely bring in $700 bi-weekly. Apartments are $1,500 for a one-bed near me. I'm $7,000 in credit card debt. I have no room at my parents' house to go. We have credit cards and bank accounts together. He wants to add himself onto my phone plan. I don't know what to do or if it's even right to break up with him. I just don't think it's fair to him to continue this relationship if I'm not emotionally or mentally there. Stories number 21. How to study for someone who hasn't done so ever. For my learning situation, all throughout high school and even now, I haven't properly learned to study effectively. I'm not sure what I should be doing in the first place. When it comes to studying in general, maybe I wasn't even trying at all. But I assume that's a different topic altogether. I'll try and condense it. I have tried a few things like note-taking on paper and computer. It doesn't work well for me and I forget most of it, quizzes, etc. The what I am trying currently are generated quizzes and flashcards on sites such as Quizlet. They do fine, but my retention needs a lot of work. I also refer to existing materials related to the course, such as student-uploaded assignments or past tests. Quizzes to get a scope on what would be asked. Distractions are also somewhat common. I haven't used notebooks or any paper material for studies at all. It's mostly digital. Stories number 22. Aita for wanting to ask my partner to move out of our new apartment even though it's only been 1 month since we moved in. I have 27 have been dating my boyfriend 36 since March of 2024. I was in a bad situation prior to meeting him, and he helped me a lot to get out of my situation by helping me with rides to work since I had no car at the time. Little backstory before I continue: I have 4 children from a prior relationship aged 953 and 2. My ex-baby daddy and I split as he would constantly cheat. I would constantly forgive, so my kids grew up in a 2-parent household. I eventually grew tired and broke it off with my ex of 12 years. He then became an asshole, and my now boyfriend, who we will call Daniel for privacy reasons, ended up becoming friends with me, all working at a retail company. We got really close in a short amount of time, and he offered to help with rides or whatever I needed help with, so long as I gave him gas money or food, which I did. I worked for 6 months straight at 2 jobs to save money and move out of my baby daddy's home. After 2 months, I rented a room, and Daniel decided to move out of his room that he would rent to help me a bit more since we were always together anyway. Mind you, he never asked if it was okay with me. He just started moving in slowly. Fast forward 2 months and he is not helping financially or anything. I say anything because he could help clean or cook, etc. At the time, my kids were with their father while I got my shit together to provide for my kids. I was a sham for over 3 years. That's why I said get my shit together. Eventually my kids come home with me and the room becomes crowded. He starts talking about how we should look for an apartment so we have more space. I agree and proceed to start saving again and buying household items as we go. Our rent is now due, and I told him I was missing a bit over half, as my check didn't fully deposit due to it being a holiday weekend. I get paid Friday nights. He proceeds to tell me he has no money to give for rent. I get annoyed and ask if he expects me to pay everything. I pay the food and furnish the apartment and put the moving fees, which were almost 4K. He ended up saying because he drives me around and helps with my kids, he wasn't going to pay for anything because these were my kids and my responsibility. Now mind you, I agree they are my responsibility. However, he was so pushy about getting an apartment for us that I ended up giving in. I was perfectly okay. In the room I rented, I would pay $1,100 and my landlord would help watch my kids and cook for my kids on days I wasn't home. When we started looking for apartments, I wanted to just get a good cheap apartment, which we had found. 2 bed to bath for $1,500 downstairs unit. This was perfect for me because of my kids. I didn't want to inconvenience downstairs neighbors with them running around as they are still young. However, my boyfriend was not okay with it because it wasn't to his liking. We kept searching and found a 2 bed to bath upstairs unit which went for $1,900 monthly. He loved it because it was vintage looking. I agreed, thinking he had never had his own apartment so he would be happy there. But was I wrong? All he had done prior to us moving was argue about how he didn't like what I was buying because it wasn't worth much. This irked my soul. So when I asked about rent, and he said that it was my final straw and I want to ask him to leave, that the guilt of him dropping his life to help me create a new one for me and my children kills me. I talked to a few of mine and his family members. They all think him overreacting and shouldn't kick him out, since he has an amazing relationship with my kids and treats me so good. Which, although yes, it's true, I was raised by a single mom of 5, so I will kick anyone out of my life that isn't contributing and just taking from me. Am I overreacting? Should I let him stay in the apartment just cause he's on the lease? Am I thieshole? Stories number 23. I recently discovered a note my fiancé 34 meters wrote about me 35F. We've been together for 4.5 years and we're planning to get married by March 2025. Please advise how you have dealt with such situation. The note included, if you plan to marry her, you should be inviting her to all functions. The issue is deeper. You don't seem comfortable inviting her everywhere because it reflects a lack of pride in her. She doesn't invite me to her events either, likely due to my past behavior and our history. Every event we've attended together has had issues. Was her behavior at a friend's wedding really her fault? Am I truly happy if I constantly expect her to change and judge her? It's not about her English skills, but rather that I prefer someone whose thoughts are in English. The real issue isn't about parental approval, it's that I'm not sure about her. And if I were, we'd be married already, and my parents' opinions wouldn't matter. She feels more like a convenience right now. Reasons in considering marriage. You want stability and to focus on more important things in life than this bullshit. I want to plan family trips. I want kids. I read this note in his phone, and he's now blaming me for reading it without permission rather than acknowledging how hurtful it is. I broke up with him, but am questioning whether I made the right decision. He sometimes seems narcissistic, and I'm unsure if it's normal for someone to write such superficial evaluations of their partner after years of dating. If you've experienced something similar, I'd appreciate your unbiased perspective. Thanks. Stories number 24. Aita for accepting a trip paid for by my husband to forgive his infidelity. When I have no intention of forgiving him and getting a divorce. My husband confessed to me that he was unfaithful to me. It was only once and the guilt was killing him. It was with a coworker. He told me that he would do anything to get me to forgive him and move on. Quit his job, or ask for a change of branch, go to marriage therapy, let me have access to all his devices. I asked for a divorce and he doesn't accept it. As a desperate act, he told me that he bought 2 tickets to go on a trip. According to him, it is so that we can spend time together and rethink our marriage. If it doesn't work, he will accept the divorce. I accepted because I want to go on a trip due to a problem a few months ago. I ran out of money and couldn't take a trip that I wanted with my family, but I think this is where I can be the Aita. It's that I'm really only accepting to be able to travel. I really don't plan to forgive him for the infidelity. Stories number 25. Aita for refusing to go to my sister's wedding. After she disrespected my late wife and demanded a family heirloom. I 32F lost my wife Lily 30F 2 years ago in a drunk driving accident. Losing her shattered my world, and have been trying to pick up the pieces ever since. My family, though, has never really understood what I've been going through. To be honest, they never fully accepted my marriage to Lily in the first place. When we got married, my grandma gave me a necklace that's been passed down in our family for generations. It's a tradition that the women in the family get it when they marry. And it meant the world to me because it felt like one of the few times my marriage to Lily was actually recognized as real. Since Lily passed, my sister Emma 28F, who's always been the golden child, has been eyeing the necklace. She's getting married soon and recently mentioned how now that I'm not really married anymore, I should pass it on to her. That was hard to hear, but what really broke me happened last week at a family dinner. We were talking about her wedding, and she made a joke about setting me up with one of her fiancé Luke's 35M friends. I felt uncomfortable, but tried to brush it off. Then she said, "At least Lily won't be there to haunt you if you hook up with someone." I couldn't believe she said that. I didn't even know how to react. I just sat there. Later, when I told her how hurtful it was, she rolled her eyes and told me I was being too sensitive, that I needed to stop being so depressing and lighten up. Then she brought up one of her bridesmaids, Sarah, who had a crush on me even when Lily was alive, and suggested I have some fun with her at the wedding, as if my wife hadn't mattered. I told her there was no way I could come to the wedding if that's how she feels about Lily and my grief. Things escalated from there. Emma accused me of being dramatic and said I was ruining her big day over one little joke. My parents took her side, saying I should just let it go and show up to support my sister. They even mentioned again how I should give Emma the family necklace, saying that since I'm not using it anymore, it should go to her now. Since then, I've been bombarded with calls from my parents, Emma, and even Luke. They've all told me I am selfish, that I need to move on and stop holding on to the past. Luke even said I should be grateful my family didn't disown me when I came out, as if I owe them something for barely tolerating me. Now, in questioning everything, am I being unreasonable for not wanting to go to her wedding after all this? Part of me wonders if I should just suck it up and go, but another part of me can't believe how little my family seems to care about Lily, or me for that matter. Sorry if this is a bit rambling. I've had a few drinks and am still trying to process everything. There's more to this, but I'm running out of space. Aita for refusing to go to the wedding and keeping the family necklace, or should I just give in to keep the peace? Stories number 26. Aita for telling my son that I'm not his piggy bank. My 35-year-old son, will call him Willie, just called me a few hours ago. Willie has never been financially smart. Despite excelling in school and despite landing a stable job in engineering, he still lives paycheck to paycheck. I have tried sitting down with him repeatedly to go over what to cut from his budget, but he insists that everything is essential. and we usually end up getting into an argument. Well, Willie must be acting extremely irresponsible now, because he called practically begging me for money to cover his expenses. He tried to guilt-trip me saying stuff like I'm your only son and things are harder nowadays. I explained to Willie that it was awfully rich to hear him grovel since he had every opportunity to improve his financial situation and chose not to. I asked him if he thought it felt good to be ignored by him every time we poured over his budget. Willie didn't respond because he knew that I was right, and instead he hung up on me. If he calls back, I'll tell him right away he won't get 1 cent from me. I can't even imagine hanging up on a parent mid-sentence. The disrespect that shows is amazing. Besides, while it's true that my wife and I have managed to live in a nice single-family home in the suburbs for many years, it's not like we have a ton of money left at the end of every month. We live extremely modestly, only going on 1 vacation per quarter. Several of our friends are digital nomads and essentially travel full-time, and if we made their kind of money, perhaps we could too. When I called my wife and told her what happened, she said that we could spare a few bucks to help Willie out. I became really frustrated with her and told her to toughen up. Willie is the type of person who spends whatever extra money he has, and he has all sorts of strange piercings and disgusting tattoos to prove it. One of his arms is almost completely covered at this point, and it honestly shocks me every time he comes home for a visit. My wife got huffy and hung up on me too, and now both my son and my wife are giving me attitude. I seriously don't think my point of view is that crazy. We only gross about $200K per year, and the taxes we pay wipe out a huge chunk of that. It can be a struggle even for us in today's economy. I just don't know how to help people who refuse to help themselves, and Willie's entitlement makes me sick and ashamed that I'm his father. I don't know what else to do. Stories number 27. My 3 for F boyfriend 3 for M is upset that I'd consider breaking my vegetarianism during a week-long trip to Japan. How do I navigate this? My boyfriend is upset that I'd consider breaking my vegetarianism during a week-long trip to Japan. I 3 for F have been vegetarian for about 4 years. My boyfriend 30 for meters is a meat lover. He is an excellent cook, and he loves steak and other types of meat. He's never asked me to start eating meat. I have never asked him to stop eating meat. I don't care what he eats, it's 100% his and everyone else's choice. Don't talk about being vegetarian, don't promote it, and I try to figure out my own food if I need to so I don't inconvenience others. Sometimes it's hard to find a restaurant with a vegetarian choice besides a side salad, so I'll do the legwork to find a restaurant everyone will like. My choice to be vegetarian hasn't seemed to be an issue or cause any big inconvenience, but maybe I'm wrong. When I went on vacation with my boyfriend's family for a week, his mom revised her risotto recipe to use veggie broth instead of chicken broth so I could eat it. I didn't ask, I think my boyfriend suggested it to her. I was really appreciative. When my boyfriend and I went on vacation for a week, we both looked up restaurants that would have a veg option for me. We mostly ate at seafood places because of where we were vacationing, and I managed to find a veggie burger or something like that at most places. My take: I have a work trip to Japan coming up soon. I told my boyfriend I was considering eating meat during that week, so I can fully experience the culture and food. That means sushi, wagyu, ramen, things like that, and not sure if I can actually get myself to eat meat during the trip, because I think I'll feel guilty about it. My choice to be veg is because I feel bad for how animals are raised, treated, farmed, and the nature of how they're usually killed. I know I can get humanely raised meat, but I choose to abstain altogether. I miss sushi and steak the most, but again, I abstain. My boyfriend's take: he is upset that I would consider breaking vegetarianism for this week-long trip, but I wouldn't consider breaking vegetarianism to have a steak with him. It makes him feel like he's not worth it. It makes him feel like the trip and the coworkers in going on the trip with are more important than him. I know he bonds over sharing food with people. He likes to cook for other people, and he's never been able to cook a steak for me, and we've never been able to share a steak dinner together. We've gone to steakhouses before, but I just eat whatever else they have. It's not the same as us both enjoying a steak. He also said that all the effort to accommodate me being vegetarian seems like a waste now. His mom going out of her way to make the risotto without chicken broth. Looking up restaurants where I can eat something besides a salad, him cooking stir fry or other dishes, and leaving the meat separate on the flat top grill until I serve myself the veggies. And then, after that, he combines it all together with the meat, things like that, me not being able to enjoy the best shrimp he's ever had on our vacation together. He was to the point of tears over us not being able to eat a steak together. I understand it would make him feel bad that I'd consider eating meat on the trip, but I haven't offered to eat a steak with him. I feel terrible for making him feel this way and making him feel less important or less worthy. I apologized for this and apologized for making him feel this way. I told him that's not it. It's not that he's not worthy, that this trip is probably once in a lifetime, and I'm afraid that if I have a steak here at home with him, I'm concerned it'll become a slippery slope. I told him I don't want to stop being vegetarian. How do I navigate this? Editing Toad. When told me how he felt about this, I listened, apologized for making him feel so poorly, and validated him. I understand why he feels bad, and I should have thought about how this might go before I said it, that I'm considering eating meat on the trip out loud. During the conversation, I thanked him for telling me how he was feeling and thanked him for telling me how important that would be to him. So I offered to have a steak with him, and I also let him know I don't want it to become a regular thing, because I prefer to stay vegetarian, or mostly vegetarian, I guess, since having steak with him wouldn't be vegetarian. I know sharing meals together is important to him, it's also important to me. What I did not know, however, is that he was so badly wanting to have a steak together where I eat it too. When he cooks meat, I always comment on how good it looks and smells. And he has said before, I wish you could taste this. In hindsight, that comment from him was probably hinting at him wishing I'd offer to eat a steak with him. He hasn't asked me, hey, can you please eat a steak with me tonight? Or would you ever consider eating meat with me or from me? If he asked me those questions and I said no, and then I said I'm considering eating meat in Japan, that would be a different conversation. I haven't rejected him that way, but I also haven't offered to eat steak with him either until this conversation came up. I didn't know this specific thing was something he wanted so badly. I thought because he eats meat as much as he wants, and we eat many meals together, that he was satisfied in this area. We've never been to a vegetarian restaurant together. I try to make my vegetarianism as small as possible. I don't want it to be a thing I bring food to his house. I get a side salad or kids' grilled cheese at restaurants that don't have any other veg options. I don't make it a big deal. I completely understand why he feels bad. That's not what this post is about. I'm just wondering how to best move forward. I also just told him I was considering eating meat on that trip without thinking about it first. I didn't think about how he'd feel. He'd feel slighted. I didn't think about how I'd feel. I'd feel guilty and anxious about the thought of actually going through with eating meat, etc. When we talked about it, I brought up that I'll have to slowly incorporate meat into my diet leading up to us having a steak together, or to going to Japan. If I choose to eat meat on that trip, I know that's a thing. Considering how anxious I feel about actually thinking more about going through with eating meat, I think it's best for me to just not eat meat on the trip. But now I still have to figure out how to address the topic with my boyfriend, because now I know he wants me to eat steak with him, and I offered to do that for him. Thanks for all the feedback, everyone. Stories number 28. You're fucking useless, you mop it, go do yourself. If I was standing right next to you, I'd fuck you myself. A customer literally just said that to me on the phone. I fucking hate retail. This guy placed an order last month and got all abusive when it got stuck in customs. I reminded him that we aren't in control of customs, and if they want to scrutinize parcels, then they have the right to. This caused a delay, and I understand the frustration, but it doesn't excuse his behavior. At the time, he was so angry. He called every day since the customs thing to ask where it is, and I kept telling him the only information I was told. Eventually, he started calling me a liar because the things I was saying kept changing. But that's not my fault. I could only relay the information I was given. This guy then demanded I cancel and refund his order, which I did with great enthusiasm. I was happy not to deal with him anymore. He did want to speak with the boss though, so I gave the store owner this guy's number and he called him directly. After that call, the owner told me to not cancel and refund the order. This guy apparently apologized for being too hard on me and would like to keep the order. Too late, I told him I had already canceled and refunded it. So the owner told me to send him an email with proof of the refund. And I did on August 21st. This customer just called again asking where his order was. This is how the conversation went. Customer, where's my order? Me. What order? Customer, the one with product X. Me. Sorry, but that was already cancelled and refunded. Customer, but I told the boss that I wanted to keep the order. Me. By the time your call with him ended, I had already cancelled and refunded it, so it was too late. Customer, why didn't anyone tell me? Me. I sent you an email. Customer, no you fucking didn't, you're a liar, I haven't received my money. You're fucking useless. Me. Excuse him. Customer, you harden. Me. Wow, check your attitude, buddy. Customer, oh go do yourself. Me. Don't talk to me like that. Customer, go do yourself. Prove to me you did a refund. Me. I did. I sent you an email with confirmation. Customer, nitrogen monoxide, you didn't. You're fucking useless. I'm going to call your boss back and tell him how fucking useless you are. Go do yourself. In fact, if I was standing right next to you, I do it myself. I want proof that you gave me a refund. Me. Check your fucking spam folder then. And then I hung up on him. I don't think I've ever had a customer that aggressive before. I am shaking right now, either with anger or frustration, perhaps both. Considering this guy did have the boss's number from their previous chat, I called him first to give him a heads up. He remembers the guy. Apparently he had mental problems, which came up when he apologized. He told me not to take what he said to heart, but I don't think that behavior can be excused. If he apologizes again, it better be directly to me, and it better be a fucking good one. I have blocked his credit card and his email from our website, so he can't shop with us again. If he apologizes, I might consider unblocking him. But right now I want him to fuck right off to the cave he crawled out of. Stories number 29. Aita for being mad at my girlfriend for making my niece cry. Advice needed. So the other day I 2om went to my sister's to 6F house to celebrate her daughter's 3rd birthday. My girlfriend 19F wanted to come with me. She had never met my sister before and was excited to meet the rest of my family aside from my mum and dad, but I knew there would be a potential issue. My girlfriend has autism and she likes to carry around a stuffed animal with her named Mandy. She's not intellectually disabled. I think if you gave us an IQ test she'd score higher than me, honestly. But she does have some quirks with which I try to be as accommodating as I can. She likes to carry Mandy around with her in public and I've never had an issue with that. But I told her that she shouldn't bring Mandy to my sister's house. I suspected that if my niece, who again is a 3-year-old girl, saw Mandy, she was going to think it's hers, want it, and then get upset when she's told she can't have it. I explained to my girlfriend how this could cause a potential issue, and I didn't want my niece crying on her birthday. She said she understood, but that my sister should explain to my niece that she can't have it because it belongs to her. She's an only child and has limited experience with young kids, and I don't think she realizes you can't really reason with a child of that age like that. So I then texted my sister and tried to explain that my girlfriend was going to bring a stuffed animal with her, but that it wasn't a present for my niece, and she wouldn't be allowed to play with it, and that the present we were getting for her was going to be a Barbie playset that was wrapped up. My sister was very understanding and non-judgmental about the whole thing and said she'd keep it in mind. So on the day we arrive, and when my niece sees my sister holding Mandy, she immediately wants it. My girlfriend says sorry, but no. She looks to her mum, my sister, presumably thinking she would give her a different answer, but she tries to redirect her to the present we brought for her. My niece has a meltdown. My girlfriend isn't good with kids or loud noises, so she starts having a meltdown too, which then creates a bit of a feedback loop where they're setting each other off. Keep in mind that both my family and my brother-in-law's family are at the party and are watching this unfold. I take my girlfriend outside to calm her down a bit, to which she finally agrees to leave Mandy in the car for the rest of the day. We come back inside, and my sister has finished calming down my niece. The rest of the day was more than a little bit awkward. My sister's father-in-law made a comment that infuriated me about how he didn't know there were going to be 2 toddlers at the party, but I didn't say anything. In hindsight, I regret not confronting him over this. When we got home, I told my girlfriend that I was mad at her for upsetting my niece that I told her I knew this was going to happen if she brought Mandy with her, and that she embarrassed herself in front of my family. She said that I and my sister didn't do enough to stick up for her, and that my niece needed to learn that other people's things aren't hers. Now she's giving me the cold shoulder and I'm not sure if I should have handled things differently. Edit. Clarified that the FIL is my sister's. Stories number 30. Regret breaking things off with a girl. Relationship advice. I, 24 meters, had gone on 5 dates with a girl to 2F I was really into. We had lots of similarities and were very in sync in many ways. I was smitten with her. She kept telling me that we were casual and I agreed. However, we met a lot in a short period and had an intense time together. Then, one night I went over drunk and asked her what she meant about being casual. Seriously, she told me she'd slept with a girl the other night. I knew I couldn't get annoyed about that because we had just started dating and she had said we were casual. She even said I was leagues better than her, but I couldn't really stop thinking about it during intercourse. So, 2 nights ago I texted her saying I wanted to end it because I didn't think I could handle this casual thing. She replied saying she's just not in the right place to date seriously, so I deleted her on everything and I realized there wasn't a chance we would be exclusive. Now, however, I am seriously regretting my decision. I miss her quite a lot and think I could handle being casual. I mean, because I deleted her contact. I don't have social media and I don't remember her number. I have no way to tell her unless I showed up at her flat like some creepy stalker, so I won't be doing that. But if I bump into her or think of a way of contacting her, I don't know if I should. She seemed to really like me, so I was wondering whether I should have stuck it out, and maybe we would have started dating seriously. I don't know what to do. I've been put into a depressive state I haven't felt since high school, and just generally feel like shit. I don't know what type of life advice I'm really looking for from this sub. I mean, I'm probably just writing this to vent, so thanks to anyone who read this or has any advice. Stories number 31. Aita for cutting my family off after they told my kids how they were conceived. I too for F have twin girls 6F. I love them more than anything and I am grateful for them, don't get me wrong. But I do wish I had gotten pregnant very differently. Long story short, I was sad by a relative for M when I was 19. It was a terrible experience and I tried to forget about it, but obviously I kept the babies. Unfortunately, I didn't really get a choice to have them in the first place, as when I found out I was in my 2nd trimester, not that I would've gotten rid of them because they are my everything. Anyways, onto the issue. My parents usually babysit the girls after school, while I'm at work usually for about an hour or so. I also haven't been in contact with my sister since I was pregnant, as she told me I clearly wanted it. She's obviously not a good person, so I keep her out of mine and my daughter's lives as much as I can. The girls are doing a fun family tree project at the moment, and I told them that their dad did something very bad and was taken away a long time ago. I never went into detail. I didn't want to go into detail or keep them in the dark. They both were happy with my response and didn't even push me on it. I obviously was going to tell them when they were adults, so they could really understand what happened and why he is in jail and not in their lives. As I mentioned, I don't talk to my sister, so my mom had the bright idea that while she was babysitting to invite my sister to see the girls, since she hasn't seen them ever. While my dad went out, my sister then told the girls they look just like their dad, and the girls told her no, we look like mom. And my sister told the girls no, you look like your dad. The girls then asked, how do you know our dad, have you seen him? And my sister told them, yeah, of course I've seen them, but you should know that you were raped. When I came to pick up my daughters, they were calling each other our babies. I asked my mom where they had gotten that name because I was livid, and she told me she had no idea. So in front of my mom I asked the girls where did they learn that from, and they told me Andy's sister Nain told us that's what we are. I just stared at my mom in disbelief and grabbed the girls and went home. When we got home I told them that that was a very bad word and that they should never say that ever. It was a very uncomfortable situation for me. They asked me a lot of questions about where it come from and what it means, and I answered this child-friendly as I could and put them to bed. Once they were asleep I messaged my mom saying that I will never trust her again and that she should embrace today, because his is the last time she'll ever see my children, and that goes to the rest of the family. My mom started messaging me full of excuses and everything, and I decided to just take the easy way. Block them and carry on. However, now I'm getting messages from my dad and my sister and mom all telling me that the girls were gone and no one day, and my sister was just ripping the band-aid off them. I on the other hand completely disagree and think they are 6 years old and don't need to hear anything vile like that, and yeah, and my sister didn't explain anything to them, just was completely inappropriate and out of line as they are children. I told some friends and they're telling me that although my sister went the wrong way about it, she didn't do the wrong thing, and with everyone telling me I'm in the wrong and just confused. So Aita, just some extra information, this happened on Friday last week and I told my friends over the weekend. I'll add a photo of my sister's most recent message on another post. Stories number 32. Aita for telling my mother she will not be at my wedding or meeting my theoretical future children. A bit of background. My 33F mother 67 has quite a lot of mental problems stemming from her childhood and early adulthood. She was the middle child of 12 siblings, a victim of SA by both her father and one of her brothers. Parentified young out of necessity when my grandmother successfully managed to escape her abusive husband and a teen mom who was manipulated into relinquishing custody, my oldest sibling, and denied a previously agreed on condition that she still get to be in her child's life. When I was young, these horrific circumstances she experienced were used directly against me by her in order to manipulate me into behaving how she believed a daughter should. If I so much as got upset because I couldn't watch cartoons on a Saturday morning because she was watching the news, she would start crying and saying I made her feel like a bad mother I was for. She was vocal about her disappointment at having a daughter that didn't share her features, especially when it became clear I had a lot of thick, coarse, wavy hair as opposed to her thin straight hair. For the first 9 years of my life, she gave me bowl cuts to avoid having to brush or style my hair. It only stopped after I began to rebel and refused to let her cut my hair. It eventually came to a point where my dad came home to me barricaded in the bathroom, sobbing as my mother threatened to kick the door in and shave my head. He immediately intervened and, after they argued, he put his foot down and made her stop cutting my hair, informing her he would take me to a salon to get a proper haircut so it grew out evenly. 2 months later, there was a lice outbreak at my school. My mother used the opportunity to shave my head before my dad got home. He changed his work schedule to prevent her from doing this again. She frequently commented on my weight and diet since I was 5. She said that since she was a size 2 until her 40s, it was obvious I wasn't eating healthy and needed to start limiting my calories. She, to this date, continues this behavior. When I had the typical teen acne, she said it was gross and ugly. When I asked to do clubs and sports, she refused to allow me to, because they were too dangerous for a girl like you. The worst thing was anything involving clothing. Any time I had to go clothes shopping with her, she loudly claimed I wouldn't look good in anything I picked out because it was made for skinny girls. I wasn't overweight. I had a more developed chest, if you catch my drift. She would bring baggy, ugly, unflattering clothes to my changing room and throw them at me while saying these will cover you better. Then yell at me if I even said I didn't like the color. More than once, a dressing room attendant had to comfort me as I cried because she refused to buy the clothes I liked because she felt I looked fat in them. I started just wearing jeans and baggy shirts at age 12. And I refused to tell my dad because stupidly I thought my dad would side with her. It all came to a head for my prom. I didn't want to go at all. I was very self-conscious of wearing formal wear, and I didn't know how to style my hair or do my makeup. I couldn't even dance. Of course, my mother suddenly insisted I go to prom. She dragged me dress shopping 3 months before prom to ensure we got a good dress. My dad, to his credit, had told me directly I could spend up to $500 on my dress and to pick something I really wanted. I tried on dozens of dresses and found one that I fell in love with. It was a red sequin mermaid dress and it fit me like a glove. I had literally never felt more beautiful than I did in this dress. It was $350 and I had made my decision, but my mother insisted I try one more on. It was a floor-length matte purple ballroom gown, with the shoelace ties in the back and spaghetti straps. It looked horrible, was itchy, uncomfortable, didn't allow For me to even wear a strapless bra and made me look bigger than I was. It was $175. My mom bought it as I got dressed. And when I told her she bought the wrong dress, she said the red dress is more fitting for a skinny girl. We had a very public screaming match, were asked to leave by the shop staff, and I refused to talk to her until I got home. When I told my dad, he grabbed me and the dress and drove me to the shop. It was closed. He promised to take me the next day to get that dress. Unfortunately, by the time we got back, the dress in my size was sold out and we were informed the purple one was clearance, so it wasn't even eligible for an exchange. My dad got the info of the dress and called every shop in a 100-mile radius. They were all gone. I was heartbroken, and he very much considered divorce over what my mother had done. I told him I'd wear the dress, I'd go to prom, but I would never in my life go clothes shopping with my mother again. He agreed, and for years backed me up when she used her trauma to manipulate me. 15 years later, I am extremely low contact with my mother. I will give her a text once every 4 months or so. For my dad's sake, they are separated. My dad doesn't want to divorce because she would take half of his retirement and his house, and am engaged to my partner of 7 years. I have been in therapy for my trauma, unlearning a lot of self-hatred and insecurities I developed from the things my mother engraved in me, and I have learned to love my body regardless of my size. My fiancé has been extremely supportive and helpful as I have been on this journey, telling me daily that I am beautiful and intercoursey. Even when he comes home to find I have randomly dyed my hair, something he admits can be a shock as I am a fan of dramatic colors, he's always reinforced that I am beautiful. We are planning our wedding for 2026, keeping it very small, and mostly throwing a party to celebrate our love. Word got to my mother from one of my aunts and she began to ask when we were going to start dress shopping. My jaw was on the floor. Every bad memory from my youth came flooding back. I first got scared, then I was just angry. I told her that was never happening, and told her I was not having her involved in the planning in any way. All the old guilt trips came back. She cried, told me she didn't get to see her oldest get married, and even said she wanted to keep me from taking the wrong dress for my size. I was in shock. I felt like I was 18 again, staring at myself in that hideous purple dress, wanting nothing more than to just drop dead. I snapped back to reality, and she said, I can't wait to take your daughter shopping for all the pretty dresses one day. I fucking lost it. I screamed at her that she wasn't ever going to see me walk down the aisle, because only those who support me would be welcome at my wedding, and any future kids I may have will never be subjected to her abuse. I hung up and blocked her. I warned my dad and told him the whole story. He understood, and while he wishes I had been a touch less harsh about it, he said he was proud of me for standing up for myself and not letting her push me into something I didn't want. I thought all was fine until my aunts, uncles, and cousins started messaging me, calling me ungrateful, spoiled, and in awe. Their arguments ranged from she's your mother to it's her day too. One cousin even said he hoped I never have kids, because I would be a horrible parent if I'm willing to mistreat my own mother. I am at a loss. I realize that my trauma has affected my response to my mother. I know that I suffered abuse, but I also know my mother did too, and am beginning to at least think I should apologize for blowing up the way I did. I in no way will allow her at my wedding or near any theoretical kids. But I realize I allowed her to have power over me again by letting her words draw a very dramatic reaction from me. There were much more mature ways to tell her she wasn't invited, and I don't think the children's situation will be arising anytime soon, so maybe that was just petty and unnecessary. Aita Reddit. For clarity, most of my aunts and uncles know about my mother's flaws. There are a few I have not had contact with since childhood that went NC with the family decades ago, but it was never a secret that my mother hated my hair or considered me obese. My cousins are a different story. There's a lot of us. I think there's 40, a last count, and at least half went NC with our extended family as soon as they turned 18. The rest either know and keep quiet because they know the consequences of speaking up, or they side with my mom because they themselves are toxic. Did of an update, my father has entered the discussion and brought back up my mother's oldest brother. I'll refer to him as Barry, the one who cut everyone but my dad and grandma off before I really remember. I wasn't aware of this, but he cut everyone off after a family reunion. where the adults were predicting what each child would be when they grew up, and many of the adults made jokes about me and my older cousin went NC when she turned 18, being destined to being old spinster hags I was 2 and she was 6 according to Barry Hayes, exposing all the family secrets to the cousins in the chorus of jerks and the tea scalding. Without going into much detail, at least one aunt may or may not end up with a grandchild with extra limbs thanks to her own husband's affair. My dad confronted the aunt, his sister, that spilled to my mother about my engagement. She's appalled and has since apologized to me for her lapse in judgment. To be honest, I really don't hold her responsible, as she wasn't aware of the situation or that I was LC with my mother. As for my mother, I have not and will not apologize. At least one person recommended security at my wedding, and that was already the plan, thankfully. But something more concerning has arisen. One of my younger cousins, his parents took my mother in during my parents' separation. Overheard my mother and aunt discussing what cancer they can claim she has to force me into submission. He told his dad called my dad, and I was essentially given a list of people to block on all media forums. For now, I'm effectively being guarded by my dad, 2 uncles and little cousin, who I desperately don't want sucked into this. If anything new develops, I will update, kinda hoping I don't have to. Stories number 33. AO husband told me to go to sleep while he is skinny dipping with my BF in our pool. Yesterday my best friend came over to watch the UFC fight at our house. My husband decided to smoke wings for dinner, so we were all sitting in our backyard eating and watching TV. My friend and my husband bought a bottle of whiskey earlier and were drinking mixed drinks. But I was too tired and hungover from going out the previous day, so I wasn't drinking with them. So here where this whole mess starts. They decide to make a bet on who is going to win the final fight. My husband proposes that the loser has to take a shot of whiskey and jump in the pool naked. One of the baits was that if they both lose, I am not sure how, then they would both jump in the pool naked. I asked why does it have to be naked, but he ignored that question. This whole conversation happened an hour before the last fight. Shortly after that conversation, I fell asleep and woke up around 1 a.m. because I heard the sound of splashing water. I opened my eyes and saw that my husband and my best friend are both skinny dipping in our pool. I got up and told him that it's late and I want to go to sleep and he should come with me. But he said he is not ready to go to sleep and wants to continue drinking and swimming in the pool. My BF was asking me to join even though she clearly knows that I am exhausted and I don't want to drink. I declined the invitation and went back into the house and laid on the sofa because I didn't know what else to do. I was feeling very uncomfortable. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, and I was just hoping my husband will come back home and go to sleep with me, but that didn't happen. They proceeded to get wasted and swim naked till 3:30 a.m. when I sought him to come to make another round of drinks for them, and this is where I lost it. I started yelling at him, saying that it's super fucked up, that he thinks he can hang out all night but naked in a pool with my BF and get extremely wasted while his wife is sleeping by herself upstairs. I told him that I don't hang out with any of his friends naked in the pool and would never do anything like that. After that I went to our bedroom and slammed my door. Shortly after, my BF knocks on my door and asks what happened and if we can talk. I told her that it's inappropriate for them to hang out naked in the pool by themselves. This is when she said, well, but what about those times when we skinny dipped all together? How is this any different? This is when I have to mention that we did skinny dipped a few times together. Once with a big group of people at my husband's birthday and one time when we were on shrooms. This was a decision we made all together and everyone was on board. This time, I did not give my consent nor did anyone ask me if that was okay. They just both decided that since we've done this before, then there shouldn't be any issues with that, so I told her I didn't consent to them doing it without me. And that if she doesn't understand why this is wrong, then I can't help her. She called me a hypocrite and left the room. I thought that my husband will come to bed after this fight, but instead he proceeded to hang out with my BF and I found them sleeping on the same couch opposite sides and under the same blanket at 6:30 a.m. when I got up to get water. I don't know what time she left the house and I have no desire to talk to my husband. I just want to know if I am overreacting. Stories number 34. I started giving my boyfriend, now fiancé, blowjob every day and I has changed our relationship. Okay, so for around 3 to 4 months now I have been giving my boyfriend, Now Fianca blowjob just about every day, and it has completely changed our relationship for the better. Our relationship was already a good spot. We got along great, had a great intercourse life and all, but now everything is even better. We moved in together and that's kinda when this started. I actually enjoy giving head, so it doesn't seem like a chore to me. But once I started giving him head every day, he has completely changed for the better. He is always in a good mood, more helpful around the house, gives me tons of massages, goes shopping with me, and our intercourse life is even better. I've changed a bit too, and I've found myself taking care of him in other ways too. I love cooking for him, taking care of chores, etc. Also, my head got him to purpose so. Stories number 35. AITH for freaking out. Wife 38F told me she prefers women. Need advice. Good afternoon, my wife and I have been married for 12 years, together for 15. We have 2 kids ages 5 and 7. We have been having intimacy issues for over a year now. And today, we finally sat down and talked about it. During this discussion, my wife told me that she has been attracted to women her whole life, not men, and has been suppressing this for our entire marriage. My wife told me that her fix for this is that we should both see people on the side but stay married. I am repulsed by that notion and could never do that, even with my wife's permission, for so many reasons, mainly because I love her way too much. Guys, I'm at a loss. My wife says she loves me and wants to stay married, but with this new arrangement, I honestly can't imagine my life without her, but also cannot fathom living in a marriage where my wife has 1 foot in the door and 1 foot out. This is our first marriage each, and I assumed would be our only ones. I'm sorry to bother you all with this, but any advice or feedback that you would be willing to provide would be most appreciated. Thank you, guys. Stories number 36. I bled on his blanket by accident and it triggered a disagreement. I need advice. Hi everyone, going to keep this one short and sweet. I'm staying at a guy friend's house. When I woke up this morning, my guy friend pointed out a blood stain on his blanket and I realized I'd started my period in the night. When he pointed it out, he sounded annoyed and said something along the lines of, "I'm going to have to wash that now." That was the only thing he initially said. In hindsight, I probably should have apologized, but my immediate reaction to his statement was upset and embarrassment, and I couldn't bring myself to speak for the next hour. He sits on his bed next to me and reads. That doesn't really say much. When he finally spoke to me again, he said he was annoyed that I hadn't apologized. I told him I was annoyed at his reaction because situations like this should be handled with sensitivity, and it seemed like he was more bothered about his blanket than whether I was okay or not. He said he felt unacknowledged, and I said I also felt unacknowledged but also shamed. He was insistent and I should have said something, and that at least he pointed out there was an issue. But I had to explain that if you don't specify that you're merely frustrated that the situation and not the girl, then 9/10 the girl is going to assume she's being directly blamed. I know that my nonverbalism was due to the embarrassment and shame I was feeling and not out of intentionally being rude. We came to an impasse and now I'm not sure what to make of the situation. What do you guys think? Any thoughts are appreciated. Stories number 37. Today my kiddo and I pulled off a prank 5 years in the making against my wife. 5 years ago on her 13th birthday, we were chatting about what she wanted to do on her major milestone birthdays. We decided that on her 18th we would play a prank on her mother. That was tonight. We went out with family and friends, and after the main meal I announced that I wanted to buy my newly adult child their first alcoholic drink. Cool, she said, I'll have a whiskey. Cue the looks of disbelief from everyone at the table. My wife said that's hardcore, and my mother tried desperately to convince her grandchild of a better option. Kiddo remained steadfast, and I put on my best "this will be a good lesson to learn" face and asked if anyone else wanted a shot. No one did, but everyone got out their phones to record the event. I'd informed the server of our plans ahead of time, and she brought over 2 shot glasses, one with Angel's Envy that she put in front of me, and one with apple juice that was placed in front of Miss 18. We both downed our shots and looked around at everyone to see their reaction. My parents, sitting opposite, were preparing to leap out of the way of a spray. My wife's expression went from worrying to confusion to suspicion quite quickly. Neither of us pranksters could keep our laughter in for long, and we quickly spilled the beans, but the facial expressions of everyone at the table were brilliant. My mother in particular had a wonderfully expressive reaction. All in all, it was a pretty trivial prank, but the best bit was that all through her troubled teenage years, we've always been able to bring a smile to each other's face by reminding each other of the conspiracy. It's something that was shared between just the two of us, something so simple yet so wonderfully binding. Stories number 38. At what age did you lose the imposter syndrome and stop feeling like a teenager trapped in an adult's body? I recently turned 24 and I realized for the first time in my life I actually just feel like an adult. It doesn't feel like I'm faking it anymore. I'm finally owning it. The imposter syndrome vanished. I felt like I was basically the same age or in the same stage of development from around 15 to 22, but then everything shifted from 23 to 24. Now it's like I'm almost a year sober. I'm starting a small business. I got real adult things like credit cards and bills. I got better coping mechanisms and can regulate my emotions better. I feel capable and confident. I finally feel like how I always imagined adults are supposed to feel. Not that I have it all figured out, but that for the first time, I have enough figured out to be able to handle myself, and with enough confidence in my ability to figure out future new challenges, so as to be able to embrace change and growth more openly. So anyway, now I'm just curious what age you similarly came into your own, and how many of you are still waiting for it to happen. Stories number 39. Did I hit the gold mine of all jobs? F17 quit my fast food job to work at our local gym. I work out regularly to build muscle, so I think it's great I get to work at a gym, since I won't have to pay for a membership anymore. I get decent hours and can work my way up to full-time. I get paid 15 HR, which is considered high in the state I live in. My job, I get paid to do almost nothing. My manager told me, be working in the daycare. Yes, we have a daycare in our gym, which is nice because I love working with kids, but it isn't busy often, so I'll mainly just be cleaning a lot. My first day, I cleaned everything top to bottom in under an hour, but still had a lot of time before my shift ends. I asked the women who also work here what tasks I can do, and they told me this isn't a hard job. You get paid to look busy, and I realized that's what most of my coworkers do there. So to sum it up, I get paid 15 hours to circle around the gym. My manager also lets me work out while I'm on the clock. My friends think I got the perfect job and that I hit the gold mine, but I don't like doing nothing. Yes, my job's easy and I get paid good, but I have work ethic and like being busy. What should I do? Should I just appreciate how easy it is? Stories number 40. Aita for telling my wife that she needs to get over me missing the birth of our daughter. I work in a job where there are certain times that I do not have access to my phone, or I am in the middle of nowhere. These times are well scheduled in advance and basically take up my whole day. There is a ton safety regulation I have to follow during this time. My wife was pregnant and at the time I planned to take off work near her due date. Unfortunately, she went into labor early, about a month early, and I was on an inspection. I only learned about her going into labor when I got signal again. By the time I got to the hospital, she has already given birth. This was about a 1.5 years ago and I am involved. Father, the issue is every single time we have an argument she will bring up I miss the birth. It happens almost every single time. From serious arguments to what fast food should we get today was my breaking point. We got into an argument about her wanting to change the daycare situation. She wants to change daycare to one closer to the home I do drop off, and she does take up the only one closer to our home is too expensive and we cannot afford it. In the middle of the argument she pulled out I wasn't there for the birth again. I told her she needs to get over that and stop using it in every fucking argument we have. She called me a jerk and left. Stories number 41. Aita for telling my parents I no longer want to visit them on their birthdays or family holidays. I too 1F have been having a rough patch with my parents at the moment. For a bit of context, I have been in the military since I turned 17, working as an engineer. I live in the barracks and for the past 4 years have been visiting my parents at home for family events. Last week my mother 52F called me and started complaining about how she misses me and was rather angry about the fact I didn't even try to attend her birthday party last week. My reply is what made my parents really angry. I had told my mother I wasn't interested in celebrating the birthday of a person who didn't care about me, and that I wasn't willing to sit in a train for 5 hours. My mother lost it. She said she wasn't aware that she had raised her daughter to hate her family, and that I should have made the effort to go see her on her birthday. She then followed on by saying I was the one who chose to work in the army, and so I have to be the one to make the efforts to go see my family, who all live relatively close to each other. See, I understand where my mother is coming from, but throughout my entire career in the armed forces, my parents have only one come up to visit me, and that was when I passed out of Harrogate, and even again. After that, my sister 29F and her family have come to visit me a couple times, mainly to drive me back home, giving me a chance to rest. So I did tell my mother that I understood, but if I wanted to see them I would travel, and if they wanted to see me they should travel, but she wasn't having any of it. Eventually I told my parents I don't have time to be arguing over this, and that I would no longer be traveling to see them if they can't do the same for me. My sister understands both sides, but doesn't want to intervene, and my parents refuse to even slightly take my side into account. I also brought up my mother's age so that it's clear that they are fully capable of traveling and are in fact very healthy and, in my opinion, young. Aita